And here we are for Roundtable, I believe number 35. I do enjoy the fact that every time I'm not actually sure what number it is. I could be way the fuck off. It could be 37, 36. I'm pretty sure last time I said 34. I think the point is that it doesn't really matter. And I wanted to talk about this a little bit because I think this is the point of today's call. The mind's really fucked up. Like, I really want everyone to keep that in mind. See what I did there? Just remember, you may not realize it, but there is a consequence to almost everything that you invest in as truth. So if all of a sudden you invest in this idea that you would be a better version of yourself if you were to get everything quote unquote right, every other thing you do is going to feel wrong. It's going to feel like it has so much weight and so much pressure. And yet, if you envision what it is to actually live in a world where you're enjoying your life, there's no pressure there. There's no expectation there. You can do that right now. You can let that go right now. But it's the commitment to this idea that you must live a certain way, that you should be a certain kind of person, that you should think certain things, that creates all kinds of chaos. And it's the mind. That is just the nature of it. It's not that it's a bad thing. You're not doing anything wrong. This is just the nature of the mind. Just be aware of it. And you'll start to realize, oh, right, I can just treat all of this a little bit lighter. It won't feel so heavy because that's the trade. If you want to make this heavy, if you want to make this a very serious mission on how to live life perfectly, correctly, morally, it's going to feel super heavy. And it's because you're bringing the weight. Your mind is just catering to your choice, whether you realize it or not. But if you can become aware of it and develop sensitivity to it, then when you start to feel heavy, you'll go, oh shit, what am I investing in? What am I carrying? What did I just pick up? Instead of going, why is life so hard? I should be better at this. I'm not doing this right yet. One day I'll get this. There's no day like today. There's no time like the present. You just pick something up. That's as simple as it gets.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be this thing that you think is going to be gotten rid of immediately either, like in one swift swoop, like the potential for it, the potential to focus on some idea or some way of how you're doing or some sense of certainty is like always there. And I think sometimes that feeling of just like the open-endedness of situations or conversations or things that you're doing, especially on an episode like this, not necessarily having a topic that we choose, but you kicking things off with talking about the mind and how volatile it can be and how real it can feel and how quick we can spin up certain stories about things. It's like you can do that as you're expressing whatever you're expressing, and I kind of just did both at the same time as I was wondering where the hell I'm going as I'm talking. Like, I don't really know, but I'm gonna keep talking until I stop talking, and that was the direction that I took that sentence.
And then there's weight or not weight based on how you react to that sentence. You're like, it happened. But that's it. It happened. How you feel about it after the fact is what's going to determine what happens next.
Mhm.
Right. And it's so easy to it it reminds me of just the experience of what I imagine quicksand to be. If you're lucky, you're not just walking in the jungle, all of a sudden there's the floor becomes quicksand. It's like, no, you take one step and you realize, oh shit, my foot is sinking. And that's where I can notice I've just gotten caught up in a thought loop. I feel the sand on my foot. And I could judge that I wasn't paying attention and stepped in the quicksand to begin with. But then if I'm judging it, that's not me taking the foot out. And so as I'm judging it, the foot sinks a little deeper. and then I'm caught in another thought loop, and now this thought loop is about judging the first thought loop, and then I'm judging that, my foot sinks deeper. And I'm not noticing that because I'm just getting caught up in one thought, and then that's leading to the next one, and I'm not actually moving. And then when I realize that I haven't been moving and we've just been thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking, I'm waist deep and I want to panic. But if this was a real life scenario with quicksand, the best thing, the option at the beginning could have just been noticing that the foot sunk into the quicksand, and instead of judging that movement, just moving the foot, just doing anything else and not thinking about doing something else, just moving the foot. Like as soon as you notice that you felt that thought, as soon as you felt the weight, because you can feel the weight pretty quickly, and we're developing that sensitivity. Every time you notice that you were just caught up in a thought loop, that was you developing more sensitivity right then and there. And that's huge. But we don't want to acknowledge that, because we would rather just get caught up in we'd rather try to outthink the thought loop, because it seems so promising. And the paranoia makes it sound like that would be so beneficial. We'll just think this. We just have to think the right thing. We just have to figure this out. And you're not actually doing anything in this pursuit of figuring it out. And so it's just like, as soon as you feel the weight, as soon as you notice your foot's in the quicksand, move it. Move your attention. Do anything. Go in any other direction. Because thinking about doing anything else isn't actually doing anything.
Well said. Now, I wanted to mention very quickly again, this is a roundtable, which means that it's not just us shooting the breeze today. Hello, listener. We appreciate you being here. We are also joined by Kelly, and we have a few other people who signed up for today's roundtable. They are not here as yet, but they may join midway through the conversation. Kelly, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate you joining us.
Yeah. Yeah. About that, like get the mind kind of being toxic, especially in think loops. It reminded me of recently talking with you guys. And I asked, oh, okay, like when's your birthday? And like, where did that person travel from? Vancouver. And I was like, do you need a passport? And you guys were like, yeah, you're coming to Canada. And my auditory processing, I heard Vermont. So I was like, oh, I've been on ferries before. They don't like ask for your passport. And so that night I was thinking about it, and I was like, we talked so many times in the group about not caring about things like that. Like you guys did not care that I asked that question. So I was not going to allow myself to be like, oh, I'm so stupid. I shouldn't have said that. Oh, I should have thought more. It was just like, that was unnecessary. Moving on. That doesn't help me, do anything but question myself or make myself feel worse. And it was unnecessary because it was a mistake and not that big of a deal.
Not even a mistake. That's the funniest part, right? Like that was how you led to the understanding. You're like, your brain's just like, oh, hold up, something there, and you're, oh, right, shit. And next time you're gonna be like, right, that's in Canada. And that's the whole thing. But it really is that. It's the application of it. It's being able to go, yeah, it's not really what I'm making it out to be. We went to karaoke a little while ago, and I went to the bathroom, and I was standing out in the hall, and the bathroom door was closed, and I just smoked a joint, and so I just assumed somebody was in the bathroom. And so I'm standing there, and then somebody else comes up behind me, and they're lining up behind me, and then two other people are lined up behind them. Some lady walks in, like, somebody in the bathroom, like banging on the door. Nobody was answering. And they're like, geez, what kind of a jerk is in there just not answering the door? Nobody was in there. The whole time I was holding up the whole thing because I was too fucking stoned to actually just check the handle and go in. So I'm like, oh. So I went in, left, as quickly as I could so everybody could move on. But there was no level of embarrassment. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. I look just stupid to these people. Like, I didn't care. And I recognized at that moment, like, that would have crushed me. I would have went out. I would have been like just flushed in the face. I know at one point I would have taken that to heart. Like, and that was the biggest, most important thing. Oh my God, the trial of the bathroom line. Like, it's like, who gives a shit? But I would make it important, and so my brain would make it important. all of a
Mhm.
sudden everybody in that bar would be laughing at me. Everybody'd be talking about it. Everybody be doing, they're not talking about it. They got shit to think about. You know, that's the whole point. But it's just, it's the application of that. Because if you want to believe they're talking about you, it sounds like it.
It's very easy to believe that assumption that, oh, people are thinking about how whatever I am because I made this mistake.
Yeah. Oh, it can feel very much like that. Like any story you're telling yourself, if that's at the forefront of what you're doing, like it's gonna feel like everyone very much is talking about, or at least talking about something in relation to that. Like someone else tells a story from their life, and you can
Mhm.
immediately assume that like, oh, it has to do with what I'm stewing about or wondering about
Yeah,
or worried about or whatever,
completely.
story you can
Yeah.
tell. But yeah, just and like for me too, it's been like not beating myself up when I do catch those things and like seeing how quick I can like move past it. Like when we were at the bar yesterday at karaoke, I totally cut someone in line. Like they were there and I just like didn't notice them because I was probably just caught in my head or something. And I ordered and like she's bringing me my drinks and this woman's like, you just budged me. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like I felt really bad and she looked kind of bummed. And so I got her drink and we chatted for like 10 minutes and it was like, it's like a human interaction and I
Yeah.
could have judged myself the whole time and just like felt really bad and gotten out of there as quick as I could. But like, I don't know, tried to move on quick.
Well, you had a human experience about it, and then that person is just like, wow, that guy actually dealt with that like a fucking reasonable individual. Like
Right.
they heard me out.
Yeah.
They heard me out instead of just getting defensive and fucking off.
Yeah.
Right?
Like you should have been standing in the middle of the bar and so I could see you instead of over
If
on
you
the
even
side.
bothered to say that instead of just taking your drinks,
Yeah.
walking the fuck away. You know what I mean? Like
Got mine.
exactly. So I mean, right there, you offered a new experience to another person, just by virtue of just having the courage to not run away, to face it, to not assume. Oh, it makes a big difference in a lot of ways. Gonna mention one once right now. We've got more people in the room. Marie and Jazz, welcome.
What
Thank you
up?
for being here. Marie, you've got your hand up. Kick it off. Nice to see you.
It's so good to be here. It's so awesome to see you all three together in that space. I haven't gotten a chance to see that yet, and warms my heart. I also absolutely knew listening to the live before joining because I was like eating, and honestly, the food is still right here. But so if you see me, I'm always doing that. Yep. Just doing the same. When they mentioned, when Ray, I think you mentioned that there are other people, I'm like, I know the other person is, obviously is me and Jazz. I'm like, I have to remember it's Jazz. I'm like, not only that, but I feel like we're gonna come in at the same time. And sure enough, when I fucking join the call, there's Jazz, and I'm like, here we go. I don't know. Anyway, um, I'm feeling ranty today. So, um, but it's funny that all of what was being shared before because I was just in a meeting with teachers, kind of talking about this idea of sharing stories with the kids that isn't just like European centered or just like one story, one narrative of what the lens of how we're teaching kids, because there's a whole freaking world. Your one way isn't the same way for everybody. And I think Ray said something about that too, of just like this idea of, um, yeah, one way not being the only way, or, because there's just so much out there. And then it's funny to like think of one narrative is better or higher than the other, and it's just like these are all just stories and experiences that are happening all at once. It's just this experience that we're having constantly. And to say that, you know, your part of the story is more important than another part of this whole story misses the point of the whole story entirely. Like, you gotta look at the whole thing, because that's what's really gonna you know, affect your own story, because you know, you're still experiencing your story, but you're recognizing the wider lens here, that there's just so much so much here. Then there was another comment too. I just felt like it was just boom, bam, bam, of different things, and I was like, yeah, I was just thinking about that today. Um, I don't know. I'm sure more will come, but I'll leave it there for now and just say I'm real excited to be here today.
Great to have you.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. I resonate with the narrative stuff, and like just looking at your own and not even realizing maybe that everyone else has got their own that they're looking through to some degree. It's like if there can be spots where like you're so focused on your own narrative that like you assume that no one else even has one. It's like that's gonna disconnect the fuck out of you and your experience. Like, holy shit. So yeah, like not focusing on that as much or prioritizing that. There's yeah, a lot more space there for sure. You're just like, yeah, be there, whatever you show up as, right? And not and like kind of prioritizing how you're going through your experience, like taking a good look at yourself and being like, are you enjoying your experience right now? And then like answering it honestly and being honest about like why something is or isn't the case, because that can then totally shift even how you hear people, like how you interact with things. And that's exciting, you know, because perspective, as much as it's like maybe a conceptual thing to some degree, it's also, you know, something that's applicable, I think, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, and something that I've learned over the years is the power of okay. I used to be so combative, and I used to want to kind of dominate conversations because that was my way of having control and coping with uncertainty and all that good stuff. And so when someone would say something that would like infuriate me, I would just try to go on this like this immediate debate to like try to shift things into, and now when things happen that I'm not delighted about, I just say, okay, like I just, Amanda, we're gonna have to let you go. We've loved having you on the team, but we're just gonna have to let you go, right? You know, you would never want to hear that news, but just being able to say like okay, like it is what it is. Something just popped up on one of the screens and I was just like, okay. Right, I am in a mental shitstorm. Okay. And then I follow up with like, I'm okay. Like, as much as I may not like this, as much as I am judging this, as much as I have an opinion about this, as much as this is pressing all my buttons, I'm like an elevator in the scene in Elf. He lights up all the buttons, all like 25 fucking floors. It's like 25 floors of anxiety. Light them up, please. They are lit up. And I'm just like, okay, I'm okay. Like, I'm here, and I can pivot from here. I can always pivot from here. Like, it's okay. We're gonna like it's just okay. Like, just being able, like, the power of okay. It's not analyzing. Okay is not analyzing. Okay is not dissecting. Okay is not controlling. Okay is not describing. Okay is not making me feel better in the way that I want feeling better to be. But it's just okay, and I'm okay. And there's just a lot of power in that I've come to find.
There's a lack of problem. Like, it's not a problem, it's what it is. Like, that's the thing, we label something a problem, and immediately our perception of it changes, because now it's a problem, not just what to do next. Right? It's like, oh God, now I got to do this. It's like, you got to do something. It's gonna be something, so it is what it is, and that's all there is to it. But we want to think about it, and we're like, yeah, but what's my opinion of it? Well, now you're making trouble for yourself. You know, now you're making this fucking complicated. You know, because it doesn't matter what your opinion of it is. What matters is what you're going to do with it. Like, you're allowed to have an opinion about it, but don't confuse the opinion with the thing. Right?
Yeah.
It helps to remember that. Like, what you think of it isn't it. They're two different things. There's how you cope with it, and there's what it is.
It's wild what you're saying too, Amanda, because I was just talking to my students, which is a regular thing of that you're gonna be okay. We actually have a song that we sing too, that like to remind you to breathe, that you're gonna be okay. Take your time. Because even what you're saying with like all the lights all might be on, but you're doing one floor at a time. That's all you can ever do. It's just like show up to one, and then that's it. Like and it's funny because I had a teacher that saw it's like her homeroom that I was working with on the kids with mindfulness, and one kid gets stepped on, and like as class is starting, like we're all adjusting, accidentally gets stepped on, and it's like losing his mind. Honestly, I'm like so okay with all the things that pop up that I was just like, okay, like take your time. Sorry that happened to you. Like take your time. It's gonna be all right. And he was all right because we're okay. Like these things happen, and then we deal with it. It might not be pleasant. Well, we're not gonna say, "Wow, I enjoyed that." But we're gonna remember that it's gonna be okay because we're it's that trust. It's that trust that we talk about too. It's like we feel so often to like search for something that's going to give me, because he was looking for that validation. He was looking, that student that got stepped on, like give me the, and I was like, not. I was just the reminder. You're gonna be all right. Sorry that happened to you. I validated that it happened. Yeah, I get that. That sucks. Who wants to be stepped on? But like you're gonna be all right. And so he pulled himself together and he was fine. The teacher was like, yo, I can't. She was like, the fact that you didn't give it weight. She was like, I feel like she was just like blown away by my response to that. I think that's interesting just because like that's only just because of the nature of working with a lot of people, or recognizing that like a lot of shit happens and that like you just got to keep powering through this. Like I'm not gonna let that stop the, like it'll be what it is, but like we're chugging on. We're moving forward, and that's you got this. You're gonna be okay. I mean, that's like all we talk about. Like, I'm like, this is the time. You see these moments? This is it. Eat it up. Like, this is the moment to talk. Like, we talk about it all the time. This is it. And I did that without saying that, because there's the preachy, which I always like to do too. And I've been checked on, Marie, like, shut the fuck up. You're talking so much about like how you live your life. And then I'm just going to do it, because I didn't say that was a big deal. I didn't give it. I was just living it. I was like, okay, it's okay. Like I know it's okay. I'm trusting that, and other people trusted it too. And so we all just kind of got on the trust train, and we're like, let's fucking chug through. Yeah, chugga choo choo.
Right? Might be some bumps here and there, but we're all feeling the bumps. So all we can do is just stay on that train and keep it rolling.
Jazz. Good to see you. Glad that you can make it.
Me too. Glad I could make it as well. This is an interesting conversation, and I'm loving where we have started this one off for sure, because I've definitely had a lot being processed over the past few days, and it's really, really nice to see that things can get processed without me having to make a whole big deal out of them, as if it's some like great revelation that's being passed down on me through some text that I'm now going to read over and over, and then display it on a wall and make sure that it is seen by me on a semi-regular basis to make sure that it's being really taken in. But I've been finding that without that, you can really start flying. You can really just start doing whatever you're doing and just pay attention to where you are and not feel like things have to be such a weight, because the weight was always self-assigned. Literally, it was all self-assigned. Everything that has been feeling heavy was only because I was making it heavy. And I've always had the power to just let it down or not assign any weight to it because it's an option. It's optional to give it weight as well, and that's fine as well. And that's something that I've also been, I guess, being okay with as well, is that things may feel heavy, things may feel turbulent, and that's fine as well. That the train can get bumpy, and that's fine. I don't have to attach my self-worth to whether or not things are weightless or weighted as well.
You can just be okay with what you're feeling. Like, this is what I'm feeling. You know, it's very much, we were talking about this just before this, because we usually do an episode of DU Social. We decide we just have a chat about stuff as a whole, but you really just move forward with your life. Like, you can have opinions about it, you can pick it up, you can do all that, but you don't have to. But you get really caught up in it, right? Admittedly, I'm going in a different direction because I lost what I was going to talk about there. And I just figured I'm going to meander down this path for a little bit, because it struck me when you were talking about it earlier. Like, I can remind myself I have the strength to put it down. Do we ever actually, can you imagine this? And I just want to share this visual. So you have this massive weight that you've been carrying, right? You're walking around carrying this massive weight, and then somebody's like, hey, you can put that down. You're like, I don't know if I have the strength. You've been carrying it this whole time. Like, it's actually a cessation of effort to put it down, you know, but we don't recognize that because we're really attached to the fucking weight. We're just attached to it. We're like, I don't know if I could do it. Why? Because it's comforting. You know, it's like, I feel like this weight keeps me on the ground.
Pretty much. It's like your arms get locked in place, and so it's like you gotta bend them and shift them and move them to put them down. But yeah, you can just be yeah, chuck that shit and just be involved in what you're doing, you know, and just be here and not need necessarily a specific direction, but yeah, just paying attention to where you're at. Like, now I'm all right. We are here on a roundtable episode, and this is exactly where we're at right now. And the next step is also totally uncertain, but
But it's always uncertain. It's not like that's necessarily new. You know, the company that I work for just got bought out. And, you know, we're having these meetings about how, like, everyone feels so uncomfortable because layoffs are about to be happening. We're about to have a new employer. The company just got bought and sold. Like, they're like, it's so uncertain. And I'm sitting in the meeting, I'm like, you know, even when the company wasn't sold, yesterday was just as uncertain as tomorrow. Like we're talking about like how uncomfortable we are with this uncertainty, but like that shit is constant. That has actually always been the case. So just reminding myself of that just made it slightly less scary for me. You know, and I don't know if that's, you know, if that's the case, because it's like, yes, uncertainty is, it is terrifying when you think it's something that you can't handle, when you think that it's only able to be handled when you know what's happening, when you can be certain. And that's just not true. That's an assumption. You don't need to know something to be able to handle it, because to handle it is to pay attention to what's happening and make the most of what's available. And if it's here, it's available. And that's how I know. You know, I'm thinking about, oh, I wish I had more of this. I wish I had more of that, but that's not here, because whatever is here is available. And that's how I know it's here, is that I can make something of it now. If I can't make something of it, it's a thought, it's a concept. It's not helping. It's just distracting me from what is here and what is available and what I can do with that. And I can always do the best. I give myself the best shot by paying attention to what's here. Yeah. And thinking just isn't doing as much as I'd want it to be, you know, as much as I think about doing something, that's not actually doing it. but it feels like it. And so when we're talking about like this massive weight in this analogy, it's like we're holding in this hypothetical, you are holding something tangible, but the mental attachment, the mental chain is not real, although it feels real. And once you realize that it's not real, it disintegrates. But it looks so real because you feel the weight of that mental attachment to the physical thing that you're holding on to. And your life is this physical thing that we're feeling, and yet it feels like our thoughts are just as real as that. But it's fucking not. It's not what we think.
And again, going back to the original point I was discussing when we started this, like we invest in something and it creates a consequence. But when the very foundation of everything you think is that thing that's creating a consequence, it's like you can't see it because it's the foundation of all your thoughts. For us, it's this illusion of control. Like the idea that we, which is also another idea, can be in control, causes the fear of losing control.
Right.
Right. And the measurement of one's value according to how much control you have or don't have. But the reality is there's no such thing as control. It doesn't exist. It's a concept only, kind of like perfection or God. Like it's entirely just an idea. It's not something you've ever actually experienced. All you've ever had is influence here and now, which is the ability to make choices, the ability to choose a direction, the ability to respond as things happen. That's not control because you don't get to know what happens after, but it is influence. And so that's the reality. The reality is you are here in uncertainty and your choices make a ripple. The fiction is that you've ever had control. But as long as you invest in that idea, you'll always be afraid of losing it.
Yeah. And because I think with the control aspect, sometimes for me, like that sense of, not having control or looking at that, it can feel like, losing control. Like it's this thing that's, being let go of. And it does, like, I don't look at the fact that there's still influence. Like I'm like, if I'm here, there's no control. And then it's like, there's nothing, feels very untethered, but then like, no, there is influence though. And it's like, it's like easier involvement when you remember that there is a thing here, like the influence is just going to be expressed through whatever you're bringing to the table. And it's like, it's not just words, it's like everything that you do has influence. The way that you interact, the body posture, actions, of course, words, all of it all plays into that influence right now. That's kind of that, karmic stuff people talk about. It's like, it's not something that circles back to you. It's like immediately, because you're only pressing on and having influence over yourself. So it's not really going anywhere. But the influence side really puts things into a different perspective for me as someone who's, like a lot of people, held on to a lot of elements of control for a lot of my life. So
changed my whole fucking life. It really did. And that was something I learned in Kung Fu. That was something my Sifu told me. He's like, you never have control in a fight. You have influence. And it's like, that's super interesting because that means that it's never about the right choreography or the right, this is going to happen and this is going to happen. It's very much based on how much you're paying attention moment to moment, how much you hesitate, how much you don't. Right. And that's the reality. And then it just blew my mind. I'm like, fuck, how have I never thought of that before? Like just stuff like that. But it's one of those things that we don't, because most of our society, most of our thoughts revolve around the idea of control. Even our government, we are so bent on finding the perfect governmental system that's going to create a utopian culture for ourselves. That's another exercise in control. We just want some structure to do the fucking work for us. No, it's going to be socialism. We're going to enforce sharing. It's like, that's going to work. That I can't imagine how that's going to go off the fucking rails, right? Like, just you're not sharing enough. All of a sudden, sharing becomes a source of fascism. Like, it's just going to be the weirdest shit, right? But that's wise because it comes down to our influence now, right now. I may not be able to do anything about the world on the global level, but I can do something about the world I deal with right now. That's all I've got. But how much of our lives do we squander not looking at the opportunities that are here because we're too busy looking at the future or what everybody else is doing according to our assumptions or where the world is going as a whole according to our assumptions. So we just get locked in place rather than looking at the moment we're in and going, what am I doing with this? Oh, hey, how's it going? I'm actually curious about you as a person. Right? That's the whole point. And why? Does it go anywhere? No, but it opens doors, not just for you, but for them.
Right.
Just like you with the person at the bar. All of a sudden they're faced with somebody who could have done the typical, your problem, and walked the fuck away. And you didn't. What do you think that gave to them? It gave them a view of the world that shifted immediately. Immediately, giving them options to be a part of that changing world. It's crazy how much power is in it. And yet there's no power at all. Because it's not control, which is what we normally associate with power, right? But it's true power, which is why Power versus Force, the book by Hawkins, is called that. He's saying like most of the time we confuse power for force. Force is control. Power is something that doesn't need control. You know, gravity is fucking power.
Right.
You know, it doesn't fight anything. Everything fights it.
Right. Right. Like when you think about the ocean isn't nothing but nonstop tsunamis. It's consistent smaller ripples, infinite smaller ripples, all moving together. And no one ripple needs to be any degree of a certain amount of strength more than another ripple. It's not mega tsunamis one after another that makes the ocean go. It's all the consistent smaller ripples, all just being its own ripple. And then, what is it? It creates, it has its crest, and then it goes back down, and then it just disappears. And it's not spending its time thinking, I need to be a bigger ripple.
Yeah.
Fuck,
The
man.
opportunity to ripple is there. Yeah.
Right? It's just
You're gonna
like
ripple out your ripple.
it doesn't. It's so quick. It's like, here, gone. That's it.
Yeah.
Here, gone. Like, and it's just an infinite series of that. But if each ripple was full of doubt and questioning it, it wouldn't even fucking create itself. It wouldn't even express the potential that it was just in the middle of, because it just stopped to think about it, to judge it, to analyze it, to question it, to think, oh, I wish I was a tsunami. I wish I was, because that's real power. Look at that motherfucker. He's 30 stories high.
Yeah.
I am like 30 centimeters.
So be on its way to being a tsunami, it's like just that perspective.
But that's also full of little tiny ripples.
Exactly.
Like the huge tsunami isn't
What is
just
the
like
tsunami
this.
even? If
Yeah.
not a bunch
Yeah.
of, those small ripples.
Yeah. Jazz.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I feel like every moment has so much potential when you're not trying to perceive it through the lens of control, or trying to perceive it in a way that makes you feel more comfortable and feel like you have more of an understanding of it. Because what I'm finding is that the more I try to understand, the less I'm understanding, because then it's me getting in the way and trying to figure things out. And I don't need to figure things out for things to unfold, is what I'm finding. And that the more I try to figure things out, the harder they become to unfold, because then the way they are unfolding can be not to my liking. And then I may stop myself, or I may stop someone else. And it's like, wow, it's so much force. So unnecessary, and causes so much energy to be used up in a way that just drains me. And so it's really just a moment to moment sensitivity of being here, seeing how much weight you're putting on yourself, really, just to be something, be somewhere, try to convince someone of something. And you don't need any of that. You don't need to be sure of your self-worth, because the only thing that was ever doubting your self-worth was you. And that was the whole weight that you were carrying.
Right. Yeah, that, oh my gosh, just that perspective of yourself, like you can't even know that thought, you can know how you're doing, you know how things are going. Like, you're not gonna be able to. Anyway.
Marie.
I love it. I love the thing you just said, Jazz, of like our need to figure things out. Like there's things are just gonna unfold and be what they are, regardless if we are, doing that. And it's so silly that we get caught up that in that mentality, because I see it even in, I know I talk always about my students, but I feel like it's a huge part of my learning. And so a student was like, oh my gosh, this ladybug or some kind of bug needs our help. Like it's forget what was happening to it. It was like on a pathway or whatever. And I'm like, can you just let nature be? Like, we don't, if we weren't here, we wouldn't even know that that was happening, and it would still be what it was and how it plays out. We just like always feel the need that we know better and like how to solve this situation or how to figure it out. And who knows, whatever that caterpillar, or what did I just say? Whatever insect it was that was making its way, maybe between, it had a whole, maybe it was on a whole other thing. It was like intention, and then you pick it up and fuck it all up. It's gonna be like, what the hell? And at the same time, I guess that's part of all of it too. But it's just so funny to get caught up in that. That we have this we have this like way of figuring it out or being in control of what's happening, and that can never be true. And I appreciate the time to reflect on that and like actually sit with the fact that uncertainty is all there ever is. And it helps me kind of go through more uncomfortable situations knowing that, because I'm like, what's more uncomfortable than what's already, like, this is as uncomfortable as it gets. Just knowing the fact that everything's uncertain, you don't know truly who you are, that like whatever, that whole thing. But words. And it's interesting. I did in fact lose my train of thought there, but because I looked down at my notes and saw something else, and I'm like, that isn't what I was talking about, but it is something I want to talk about. And I have somehow detoured my way to talk about that thing now, which was
Bring it.
was the idea of learning. And I've been talking about this a lot, of the idea of making mistakes, which I know we've talked about too, and the fact that how can we even say that there are mistakes when they're just decisions or choices that have been made based off of where we were and how we were feeling and what we was the moment and all of that. And so it's been funny. I love the stories that you guys shared earlier on, Ray, when you were waiting in line and nobody was in the bathroom. That I mean, I think that's why I wanted to jump in this call. I'm like, I fucking love that, because first of all, I love when I witness or am that part of like the story at the time. Like there's some weird accident or mistake of causing, what could go down, like you said, like a whirl of judgment about yourself or what had happened, or it could just be a laughable moment, like, ha, look at us humans, I don't know, what are we doing? What? And it's fun to like remind myself of that actively, because I'll find that like when I feel like I'm taking steps backwards or, doing all these, I'm like, these are just steps. There's no direction except like the direction I give it. And it's just funny. It's all a process, and there's no need to judge what it looks like. It just is what it is.
Absolutely. It's funny because when you don't have this sense of control, what you really have left is just potential. Like for me, I'm investing in potential. I no longer have this belief in control, and so I have all of this excess energy. And to me, I may as well direct that into potential as a whole. But in potential, I don't know where that's going to go. That's the point about potential. It's uncertain. Uncertainty and potential go hand in hand. It could potentially be anything, which can be very exciting if you are willing to follow it and give it all of your attention. No matter which way the lightning arcs, you are still following it, right? You're still putting all of your attention into it. And that's a very different way of living, just to live in potential. I was explaining earlier to Andrew and Amanda kind of a visual that I was experiencing earlier today, and I loved it. Like, to me, my day starts off very much like a ribbon in the wind. Like, it's pinned down, there's the beginning of my day, and it's flapping back and forth, and it's a long ribbon. It's the entire day in potential, and it's just flapping around, going to different places that it could end up by the end of the day, and I have no idea where it's going. All I can do is just grab the next part of the ribbon. Now all of a sudden the ribbon's a little shorter, and so there's less flapping, right? Except that I don't know the length of the ribbon. And so I'm just going day by day, or moment by moment through the day, just grabbing a little bit more of the ribbon, watching the potential shrink a little bit as I get closer to the end of the ribbon. And then finally I'm at the end of the day. And that was the day, was all of that potential moment to moment flapping and me just making a fucking point that there it is, there it is, there it is, and here I am. And then the day is over. And out of all of those infinite potentials the day could have went through, there was one. But there's no sense of control in that. All there is this sense of paying a lot of attention to where the ribbon is flapping right now, right? And recognizing whether I'm just trying to like grab it out of fear or impatience or desire, or I'm actually feeling where it's going and going, that seems like a good place. You know, not out of any preference, but an actual sense of sensitivity, like I'm not forcing it. You know, just like when you're playing anything in sports, you can feel when you're forcing it and when you're not. Right. And that's very much the point about life. There is a zone. And you experience it all the time when you're here. But then it's like, how am I doing? And the floor just falls out from underneath you.
As soon as there's the hesitation or the thought about how you're doing here, and it's like here can almost be conceptual in a sense too, like feeling like you're here, but then that having stipulations, you know, it's like, and that means that I'm able to pay clear attention all the time and this and that, and I feel relaxed and I feel good and blah 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 blah. And it's like that's not it. Like it's not anything, like it all is still here, you know, like all the insecurities, all the hesitations, all the, you know, potential to fall and stumble and fail, like it's all still here. But at least if you're, you know, just not focusing so much on trying to have a sense of control, at least there's like learning going on, you know, like just following that ribbon, whether it's because there's a lot of ribbons that stem from certain ribbons, you know, as you go. And it's like you can have a ribbon of just a thought can be a ribbon, or like a conversation can be a ribbon, a situation can be a ribbon. And so like, you know, everything that you do is its own sort of ribbon until it like fizzles out. And realizing that like you're not supposed to know what the next thing, you know, 10 seconds is going to be. Like there can be that craving to like have a schedule, like a set, like thing that you just follow that and your day is set. So instead of following the ribbon, it's like following the calendar and it's rigid the whole time. Like I have definitely skewed towards preferring that sort of thing, just having something to follow, but that kind of goes hand in hand with like following something else, even if it's your decision making from before, you know, the day before, versus just being sensitive and like, you know, finding a balance to some degree, but also in the moment, it's like you're always on that ribbon to some degree.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I love, and I know this is just, you know, a point for me, but how often somebody will come, say, into my room or something like that, and they'll look at my calendar and they'll go, it's not that month anymore. You know that, right? Because I just don't remember to change it because I'm never looking at it. Like I never look at what fucking month it is. You know, like if I'm all of a sudden it's 2 months later, I take that as like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's awesome.
A big dub, right?
Right, what I'm saying? Like, but it's that because at one point I was ruled by this. At one point I was ruled by the time shackle on my hand. And I call it that for a reason. Because all of a sudden I could check the time. whenever
Always
I wanted.
aware.
And so I was checking the time all the time. And all of a sudden my day-to-day existence was dictated by moments and seconds.
60 seconds.
Like it was insane to the point where I'm like watching the millisecond thing spin through. Like
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I'm almost done. Oh.
Right.
Mhm.
It's like all that's doing is just taking away every one of those moments,
Right.
Mhm.
making them just speed along. And so now I don't wear a watch. Couldn't fathom wearing a watch. I don't even like looking at my phone to see what time it is, you know,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, like, okay, perfect example. Went to Tim Hortons this morning, got myself a bagel belt, texted you, I'm like, I'm gonna meet you here, say 1:30.
Mhm.
I looked at my watch, or I looked at my phone, I'm like, all right, that's about the right time to walk.
Yeah.
So I just started walking.
Yeah.
Got here, 2 minutes to spare. At one point, I would have been looking at my phone every fucking like 3
Mhm.
feet on the way to get here. Like, oh, gotta make sure. I would have looked at Google Maps, like, how long is it gonna take? Gotta plan that shit out. Make sure I'm right there, right on time.
Mhm.
Because Andrew's gonna be so mad at me if I'm not there. Like, it's just like that's
The
it.
pressure you
The
put on
business is
yourself.
over.
Yeah.
Because I was 3 minutes late. You know,
Yeah.
like just, and it's just fucking ridiculous. But that's the shit, because it all comes down to my need to value myself, my need to evaluate myself. And if I have a need to evaluate myself, every fucking thing matters.
Right.
Doesn't matter how stupid it is, doesn't matter how small it is.
Mhm.
Everything matters. You know, and it's just because I want it to matter. I want it to matter. Why? Because I don't want to accept that my value isn't measurable. I can't ever actually evaluate how I'm doing or what my potential is. All I can actually do is express it or don't. That is all I can do. I can't
Right.
ever measure it.
Mm.
That's super unsatisfying for me. But the
Super
trade
uncertain.
is suffering. Like
Mhm.
that's the fucking alternative. It's like, well, I don't want to like admit that my value is not measurable. I want to measure it. Damn it.
Mhm.
Oh, my day sucks. Well, there you go.
Measured suffering.
You know,
There you go. Confirmed. Check that off. Happy now?
That's right. We can get you a certification sticker if you'd like, with a
Yeah.
big bold S. For suffering.
Yeah.
Certified.
Mhm.
Oh my
Exactly.
goodness. But we're always constantly, but just because that makes us feel better. That's what it really boils down to, is just feeling better. And it's like, I just don't need it. I just don't need to know as much as I thought I did, as much as I wanted to. So it's not even that I shouldn't need this. It's just I don't happen to need it as much as I thought. It's not as important as I thought because I'm not making it as important.
Mhm.
I'm the source of that, you know, and so it's, but then I don't have to beat myself up for being the source of it, right? Because it's so easy to go from one thought loop to the next.
Mhm.
And it's just another point that you're settling on, because you were settling on something that made you feel better. Now you're settling on the fact that you were needing to feel better and you're judging that. And then we're, you know, so it's just like, I just don't need to know.
Mhm.
I just don't need to know. And I didn't know. Like all the times where I thought I knew, I actually didn't know. I didn't. Like,
And every
But then I can't judge myself.
yeah.
If I admit I didn't know, then there's no way I could have done more.
exactly. There's no way I could have done better. There's no way I could have made a better choice, because I did the best that I could with what I knew.
Mhm.
And there was no way that I could make a consideration that I learned from firsthand experience and a past experience,
Mhm.
right? Because that was something I used to do. Man, if I had known this, I wouldn't have done this before. But I couldn't have the space to know I didn't need to do that option
You just recognize.
without having picked that option and realizing that it wasn't worth what I wanted it to be.
Got you here.
Yep, it got me here. There's no wasted time. There's no wasted step. It all is worthwhile. It all led to like what is available now, which is more considerations, more experiences to like, it's just, fuck, man, that shit it was worth it.
Yeah, if you make it worth it.
Yeah, just like your shit is important if you make it important.
Yeah, absolutely. Isn't that funny?
Otherwise.
Priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have another person who has joined the roundtable. To
Hey,
everybody who's listening and not watching the video, Andrew, who has been in Patreon and I believe on a roundtable before. It's
Yes.
good to see you, man. Thanks for coming back.
Great to see
Man,
you.
I'm just resonating with everything you guys just said. You know, I just lost my job like today. And before that, I was like embracing uncertainty. You know, nothing is guaranteed, but I was still catching myself, you know, showing up to work 30 minutes early because I didn't want a chance to be late because my bosses were really anal about that. They said my second strike was because I was 1 minute late clocking in. And it was just the most like just such a toxic environment. But it's funny, yeah, I was just trying to practice, you know, the uncertainty of everything. There's no guarantees. And then sure enough, something like this happens and I didn't expect it at all. And now I have a bunch, like I had an interview this morning for like a door-to-door sales job. It's like selling roofs and solar. And it was like a job I never thought I would even consider. But now I'm like, you know, there's potential in everything. You know, there's no I'm just happy with whatever future opportunity comes. And I'm really excited to start fresh, maybe make more money, maybe work multiple jobs. Like but it's scary, you know. I had to tell my parents and I've been living with them and there was the initial, you know, anxiety of, oh, how are they going to perceive it? How am I going to come across? But it is what it is. And there's nothing I can do to change it, you know. And it's like the life just serving me this and I can play the pity party and be the victim, or I can just be like, I'm just going to get a better job. You know, I'm just going to put myself out there. And I got 3 interviews this week and I'm like, I did all that within a day. So who the fuck knows where I can go or what I can do. Right. So it's just really inspiring to like hear what you guys are talking about. You know, the uncertainty is everywhere and it's just how much you take it personally, you know, like, oh, why didn't my boss see me this way? Oh, why didn't I do this? And it's irrelevant now. It's totally in the past. It's as much as it was uncertain that this was going to happen today, I've accepted it. And if I don't like the next job, I'm just going to try another one. Right. So, yeah.
Well, and you're always just learning more about yourself, man. I mean, that's the point. Every time you're just like, oh, I can pivot like that. And oh, I can do that job too. You know, sales is fun. Like it does change things. It's not the same in terms of like an hourly wage, but again, more potential, right? You get to use your conversation skills. You get to use that willingness to like tackle the uncertainty of every conversation. So it's so funny how sometimes things happen and the temptation's always to go, oh, this could be the worst thing that could happen. It could also be the best thing that happened. Like, you really don't know. You really don't know. And I say this as somebody who's lived such a winding road to get here. I would have never known this was going here, you know, at all. So I'm inspired by it, man. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, of course. And you guys just keep motivating me. And I know it's just me motivating myself and reminding myself.
Hey.
I feel like I got to give some credit where it's due. As much as it's me realizing this, it helps to have a community that reminds me and brings me back down to earth. And it's not really the end of the world when everybody's telling me it is.
Agreed. We appreciate you being part of that community, man.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's one thing to say it and talk about it, but like you're doing it, like you're in the thick of it, sure, realizing, you know, the uncertainty, but being able to do that within a day of things playing out in your life and like coming and chatting, like, fuck yeah. Like that's what it's all about, really. And just the application of it, like that's something that hits so much more for me these days. Is like it's really not even about like, you know, these groups, roundtables, podcasts, all of it is more like the end of the I don't know, string or feather or whatever you're going through in your experiences. And so it's like coming together to talk about all those experiences that we're having in our lives instead of talking about, you know, what a potential response would be in situations like this and all these sort of hypothetical type things. It's like these are the things that inform, and like you sharing this, you know, or anyone sharing anything that they're going through, like we have no fucking idea what sort of ripple that in itself just made, or anything that we do, any story.
Oh,
yeah.
That's what I love about these podcast episodes. That's what I love about the fact that we are doing something that exists on the internet forever, for as long as there is an internet. Like everything that we've ever shared on a roundtable, on an episode, is in there in potential, just like a message in a bottle, just floating out there for someone to find and go, well, fuck, I never even thought of that, right? Or I've never put it in those words. I love that shit. Like we're over 500 episodes now on Dualistic Unity, and we've all contributed to this. Those are all out there, just making ripples all the time.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. Like what we're doing is just building this perpetual ripple machine. It's dope.
Mhm. And the ripples, like learning, are not linear. It's not going to be one straight line, and every moment that you're in is at that ripple, and it is that message in a bottle, because you the way that you encountered, or the way that you responded to the woman at the bar, or the person at the bar that was upset that you had cut them, that resonates. Someone was watching that, somebody that's not us, that you're chatting about this.
Yeah.
Like other people at the bar were watching that happen, and the bartender could have seen that happen, and then they could have went home and chatted about, like, oh my God, this guy accidentally cut off this woman at the bar, and then she's like, what the fuck, man? Essentially, better, more or less words, she's saying, what the fuck? And you're like, oh, look, my bad, totally unintentional. Could I buy you a beer? What's up? How you doing? That was, not, and it's just like, and that was so cool, because normally people are assholes, and then that guy goes to work. It's like, oh my girlfriend was telling me she was working at the bar. So you have no idea how many message in a bottle come from that message in a bottle, comes from that ripple. And in the same way that learning is not one straight line, like it feels like this crazy, like abstract art, this crazy, this influx of shapes and colors and lines and things going in every fucking direction. You're like, is that a thing? Is that a giraffe, or is that just a blob with other blobs on top of it? It's like, it could be, but it's just, we want things to be so linear, point A to point B. And of course I go from B to C. And that's only because in that structure it feels better, but our life is never just one straight line. It's just like the ripples. Ripples don't ripple in one direction. They ripple in every direction at the same time. If you drop a rock into a river, that ripple goes in every direction. It looks like a circle. And it just goes in every direction at the same time, all at once. And that, I feel like the same way our life goes in that way. And we talk about, Andrew's like, thanking Andrew for sharing like the moment that you went through. But it's so funny that we slice and dice the moment that we're always in. It's like, are they actually separate? Every moment that I was like, is yesterday truly yesterday? Is March truly March? Just because I slice this moment into 24 hours chunks, 1 week chunks, 1 year chunks. It's like, as much as I want to divide it, like it's actually, it in one perspective, it's all just one continuous moment, one continuous ripple with ripples within it. And it's so easy because I can zoom in, and it almost makes it easier to digest, but I don't actually have to do it that way, because this moment is always unfolding. It's always processing. And so when I'm talking about learning and making mistakes, it's like, you're not making mistakes. You're in the process of learning. You're in the process of just being this continuous ripple. But we just want it to be hard lines and sharp turns and super linear, because it makes it easier to describe it and to think that I can control it, because I can manage it. I can manage chunks of time. I can manage roles. I can manage a structured life. But it's hard to manage this continuous, ever-changing, always unfolding, always moving thing. It's like trying to catch fucking smoke with my bare hands. It's impossible.
Oh yeah, it's like having all of these potential options and like trying to keep your hand on a bunch of things and then your feet on other things and maintain control of those things, but you're not really doing any good to any of them. And then you notice there's like a bunch of other shit that you don't have
If only I had
a
another-
hand on, and you're just like fucking up dividing your own sort of ability to pay attention to any one thing by trying to control everything. And you're just like spreading yourself super thin, and like not even, you're wondering why you can't hear anything or see anything. It's because like trying to maintain some sense of control, and without that, then it's like, all right, pick one, whatever you're doing, make it the one you're doing right now, because that's, anything else is futile, and pay attention to that. And that's like, the influence, I think, is just like the singular focus in a sense that can expand from there, instead of the control being spread. It's like control isn't just trying to control this, it's like this relative to a bunch of other stuff, which is fucking infinite. consideration. So you pick a couple and it's like, yeah, you're still not controlling those, but you feel good about thinking that you are.
But I feel overwhelmed. Like,
Yeah.
all the time.
But when you pick a direction, you get to actually experience it, right?
Mhm.
And so I like thinking about what comes to mind right now is opportunity cost. Well, when you pick one opportunity, it's really costing you all the rest. And that would fuck with me for a long time because I wasn't sure, right? That's what it was. It was the doubt. Am I picking the best option? You know, this is coming at the cost of infinite other options, people. I need to know. I need to know what is the best option. And that would fuck with me not knowing and not being able to like pick multiple options at once and see which one played out. But in doing that, I was always paralyzing myself. And in doing that, I never got to fucking experience anything other than the thought of what I could experience and what I could miss out on. And that shit is not worth it. That the price of thinking about opportunity cost is getting unreasonably high, in my opinion. And I don't want to pay that anymore. And so I'd rather pick an option that I regret later. And we were talking about this. So we went to Tim Hortons and we're chatting. And I was just talking about how I went through a whole phase where I was like, I'm gonna be a decisive person. I'm gonna know. I'm gonna pick things. I go to a restaurant. Don't worry about me, people. I know what I'm getting off this menu. Get out of the way. Tell the waiter I'm ready, right? And I went through this whole phase where I was like, because it would infuriated me that I went from like being worried, so paranoid about opportunity cost that I didn't fucking choose anything.
Yeah.
And so then I went to the other extreme because of course,
Mhm.
now I'm not a person who doesn't make choices. Now I am the decision makers in the building. Hello.
Think about it.
I don't even think about it
Reigning
now.
champ over here.
Get out of my way. I am a decision-making fucking Duke in the building. Here. I've got a declaration to make. Right? So I went to that extreme. But what I liked about going to that extreme was that it really forced me to be honest with myself.
Mhm.
And so then I started to think of myself like a coin. I started to think, so I when I was going through the I'm deciding, I had trouble, man. I struggled to go from the no decision making train to we'd make a decision off the cuff immediately. I had trouble. So the tool that I used was using a coin.
Mhm.
Heads, tails, yes, no, very binary, 0011, motherfucker. Let's get it, let's get back to basics. And so I'd flip the coin and that would tell me what I really felt. Okay, perfect scenario. I got invited to go out to movies. Don't know if I want to go with them. Yes, heads, we say yes. Tails, we say no. We flip the coin. It comes up as a heads, and I'm like, oh no, and I feel the dread
Mhm.
of the yes popping up on the coin, and I'm like, okay, well that lets me know that we really didn't want to go, and so then I'll text my friend, I don't want to go. I'm not going to go, and then I'll instantly regret it because that always happens. I would. Oh, but I should go because it's so good for me. And I've been trapped in this house and oh no, like am I avoiding things? Am I not being a good friend? Am I going to lose them forever? We go through this whole shit. And it was just like, I just need to stick this out.
Mhm.
And either we change our mind and we really do go, or we ride out this no and we just don't go. And you just had to just stick with one until you just became at peace with the choice that you made, just knowing that if I had chosen to go, I would have felt uncomfortable in that choice. Not choosing to go, I'm going to feel uncomfortable in it. So what do I really want to do? And so being that coin, going through that whole phase, it really helped me see like, what do I really want to do? It's my life. And I can't spend my time twice. And as much as it's one continuous moment, that's the influence, is that I don't get to spend influence twice in the same moment. Because you spend it and it already is influenced the next moment. So now you're in that next moment. And is that next moment full of regret because of how you spent it? Or are you just going to be the next moment and then just continue to just get better at fine tuning that sensitivity? So like make decisions and be them and be the life, and you pivot and you change your mind without the fucking weight of regret being behind the process to change your mind when you do want to change your mind. It's a fucking process, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, trying to have that control too. It's going to cut down that sensitivity a lot, like to the point that you feel like you almost can't feel anything or be involved in anything just from trying to have that, guarantee of something or like Yeah, trying to come to some certainty, but yeah, the decisiveness, and even just like letting the pendulum swing the other side of like being more decisive and just like making a point of that for a bit, it's like that's the process of learning. It's not being too sensitive to any extreme, and finding that middle.
Exactly. Yeah. And then just letting that balance find you.
We got a couple hands.
Jazz.
Yeah, letting the balance find you is interesting because I feel like whenever I'm trying, then potential is always limited. There's very little potential in what is being seen because then it's all based on preferences and needs. And it's almost a reaction based on that in the current moment, as if to say that this potential does not exist at all. I don't see it. Or this potential absolutely fucking exists, and this is actually what's actually happening, which is like psychosis. And I find it funny because we feel like there's only a certain group of people experiencing psychosis, but no, it's all of us.
Yeah.
Every single time we're holding on to thoughts and ideas as reality, it's cutting down on our ability to really see what's actually happening, which is everything, and that it's not separate from anything else. It's literally just what is. But it can be easy to talk about that, and it's I feel like it's a whole different thing to actually be involved with it, because it's definitely its own thing, being here and being uncertain and not knowing what you're going to say next, or what kind of point you even want to make or think you should be making. Because is there a point that you should be making? Because if it's just uncertain, if it's just potential, then it's just what is. And if you have no idea how you can control anything, then there's all kinds of ribbons that are available to you, and there's all kinds of potential that are available in this moment. And then you're seeing so many different options. And it's, yeah, I definitely resonate with the opportunity cost thing, because picking one option and then the mind is going, oh yeah, but that option has this, that option has that, and this option does not have this, and this option does not have that. And yeah, the mind will say that if I go the other direction as well. And the mind will say that if I don't do anything at all, which is also another decision that I sometimes don't see as a decision, because it's like, oh, well, if I just close my eyes, then it's not happening, right? But no, you are involved in every moment. You are the moment. And so even just you closing your eyes is you being involved with the moment with your eyes closed. And so you can do that, that's fine. And you can also have your eyes open as well, if you have the courage to face your fear and to look it in the eyes and to say that, to not say anything, because it doesn't need anything to be said to. The saying to it is what's creating the weight. Fear is just fear. It's then me going and then being like, oh, fuck this shit. That's not good. But it doesn't really matter, because it's going to be there regardless. And it's definitely a very cool part of the experience, I'm finding, because often it seems to be linked to potential, because whenever I'm not experiencing that potential is being expressed, and I cuddle, I don't know, like go into my shell, basically, and I don't have to.
Like remembering that fear's a part of it, like fear's a part of uncertainty, fear's a part of like jumping into new things. It's like, it's almost weird if you were to like step into something completely uncertain and unknown, for like fear to not pop up in some degree. But like assuming that there's a bunch of stuff you have to do to like kill your fear and like get rid of it entirely. So like the next time you do something or expand, your comfort zone or whatever, like you don't feel fear, but it's like that's like tied to it inherently to like jumping into new stuff and uncertainty. It's like fear is going to be there.
Why do you want to get rid of your fear? I'm afraid of it. It's fear response.
There you go. There you go. There you go.
Right? Fear creates the monster. Because if you've never encountered this hypothetical monster before, you don't know it's something to be afraid of. So it feels like fear creates the monster to run from.
Yeah, if we run. That's the thing. Like, otherwise, your fear is actually just informative as fuck.
Mhm.
It really is. Like, it's just giving you a bunch of stuff to think about as considerations. The reason there are fears because you can't reconcile it against your skill set. Right? Like,
Right.
it's just like, here's a bunch of things that could happen. And like half of them, you're just like, I don't think I can deal with that.
Mhm.
And those are your fears. The other potential you have no problems with at all. Why? Because you think you can deal with it.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's not really fear so much as just uncertainty that's going through the lens of how you see yourself. And if you let go of how you see yourself, then it's just uncertainty.
I know Marie's got her hand.
Marie.
Hey.
Yeah, I thought this Kelly was before me.
She did have her
I was
hand up.
gonna
I thought so
say.
too. Thank
I
you.
wasn't sure with the.
Kelly, did you try to
I
talk?
always do that on Roundtable.
Am I tripping? I'm like, I could have swore.
I did have my hand up. It was really, about Ray talking about not having a watch anymore or whatever. And that when you're always checking the time, it is because then when you're on time, it's like, oh, I did good. I'm good
And
because
everybody will love me.
I did it.
Yes,
Yeah,
I did it.
I did it. And then if you're late, oh, I'm bad. They might be mad at me, and it just creates a feeling. So I resonate with that, and will think about this that I'm always checking on, because it was definitely conditioned with just my childhood.
Mhm.
Everyone's school, the bell ringing, giving you time in between, and like middle school for the
Right.
first time in between classes, like
Yeah.
on like full on.
Dude, I still wake
Yeah.
up.
And my mom too, I'll be right out front in this, 5 minutes, and being like, oh, I need to hurry up and do this, or else when I get in the car, it will be a thing discussed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I saw that you still have a watch on. And so when I was thinking about like letting go of time, Kelly, I just taped a flashcard to my clock, and I cut a really tiny one and I taped it to the front of to my watch. So I still was wearing the watch, and every time I went to go look at it, it just said now on it. Same thing. My alarm on my actual old school analog alarm clock. I just taped the card, and the flashcard said now. So every time my alarm went off, it was like, what time is it? Now.
Yeah.
I'm checking my watch. What time is it? Now.
Yeah,
And
I
so,
think
it was a way to keep the watch with and to make it and to use it in a different way. So I just wanted to suggest that.
Yeah, definitely. I do like the counting the steps, so it's not really necessary either to know how much is burned and things like that, because that is also like, oh, I did good today. I had 10,000 steps. So I did, I burned this many calories, so I did good. Always condition you to think about yourself either better or worse, depending on what markers you hit.
Oh yeah, that hit me really hard how much I would look to those things to feel good. Like I loved looking at my steps, especially if I had a lot of walking throughout the day. Like it would be exciting to be like, oh, can I check my health app and see how many steps I got? And it's like, oh, I wonder if it's higher than I think, which that would be a lot. And that means I did real good. And it's like patting yourself on the back, or it's like, what the fuck? And it counting calories, like nope. Unreal.
Mhm.
Fun to let go of, but also like there's some discomfort in that for a bit. Like weighing myself too. I do that every single day. I haven't weighed myself in 4 months, maybe. like every day.
Oh, I get it, man. I understand. Like people go and all over the map on that stuff. I used to do the same thing when I was younger. I went like a decade without knowing my weight.
Mhm.
It was nice. I mean, I just didn't know. And it was just I am where I'm at. And then it became okay. Well, if it's not about my weight,
How does it feel?
if it's not about just this ideal, like for my height,
Mm.
at my age, I should be this. It wasn't. If it's not about that, then it's why the fuck is it so hard to walk up these stairs?
It was all about functionality.
Like that's pretty much all it was. It just became like, I want to go for a longer walk, but my body's tired.
Mhm,
The fuck?
mhm.
And then it's
Yeah.
just like having a relationship with myself and what I want to be able to do in my life. So then the motivation changed.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it wasn't about where I should be, what's the ideal, what other people would be, any of that. It was just, I want to walk further.
Mhm.
I should probably walk more.
Right.
And it changed things. Like I was saying to Andrew the other day, squats are now my new best friend. Why? It changes my whole body. Like just doing squats,
Yeah.
fucking like just do fucking 30 squats. Just fucking ground to fully standing. Just
And there's
do that.
different types of squats. I'm like,
Straight
I
up.
fucking love that.
And it takes nothing. And all of a sudden your body's just like, oh shit, there's some balance in there. And oh, my back is feeling a little bit better. And it's just stuff like that. And you do that for 5 years. And all of a sudden your body is just feeling different.
Mhm.
Why? Not because you've went out of your way to make it a perfect machine,
No.
but because you've actually spent some time paying attention to it while it's moving. Right? That's the biggest thing. And I say this, and I know for anybody listening, like, oh, easier said than done. No, I get it. I used to like hobble in the mornings. Like it was rough for me. Moving my left hip has been a journey that I've been working on for like the last 4 years. And I'm just now starting to get to the point where it doesn't look like I have a limp visibly. Right? Like it really is just a little bit at a time, day by day, day by day. And it like you're like, well, I can't do 30 squats. Do a half squat. No, I mean that. Like just, even just bend your fucking knees a little bit and then stand back up, bend your knees a bit, stand back up, bend your knees a bit, stand back up. You just did something. And your body's thanking you for it. Whether you realize it or not. But it's just how do you feel? And are you willing to accept that it's a combination of small changes that make big changes. It's when you try to make a big change that you end up fucking up your body and your life. You're like, no, I got to go from like 30 pounds overweight to sleek, like a
One
fucking
extreme to the
Olympic
next.
swimmer. You're just like, no, you can just take it easy and just work a little bit on making today easier. Making today a little bit enjoyable for yourself, a little bit less arduous. Right? Just take that time, which means facing the discomfort. Admittedly, the one thing that I have never done, and I say it all the time, stretch. Everyone who's listening, fucking stretch. Because if you're not putting the time into it now, why? Because it's uncomfortable. You're like, well, why the fuck? I've got 5 extra minutes of my life here. I'd rather just watch TV. You can stretch while watching TV.
Right.
You can do that and it's going to hurt. Sure. But that's why you don't want to do it. But I'm telling you now, if you don't do it now and go through the pain,
It'll hurt
it's
more
going to hurt
later.
a fuck ton more later because then you're going to have all this riddled stress and all of these things that, over time just got condensed. Muscles upon muscles upon muscles and tendons upon tendons. And it's cumulative. Whereas right now, today, you could face a little bit of discomfort. And if you do it every day, you'll change your entire fucking life. Your entire life. But it comes down to, are you feeling how you feel right now?
Influence.
Or are you getting caught in the trajectory in your head? Are you getting caught in the concept of your life rather than the moment you're in?
Yeah. Right.
Mhm.
All those little influences, all those little choices that just make such a huge difference. And we would rather, I mean, I know speaking from my own experience, I'd rather it be these big grand gestures because that sounds like a lot less work. Let's be real. It sounds like a lot less work, but it's not, when I was going through more of application and less conceptual exercises, I was finding that all the work that I dreaded was a lot more effortless than I could have imagined, because as I imagined it, I imagined like lots of labor, lots of discomfort. I thought it would be a lot harder. And because it was gonna, because I thought consistency was has like this negative connotation. And I think I associated that with the consistency that was kind of implied in school, in exercise, in my professional life, in roles. It was like I consistently have to jump through these hoops. And so I thought consistency was like this bad thing. I thought it was this thing that I wanted to avoid. So I wanted things to be huge and big, flip a switch and we're fucking done.
Yep.
You know, but that's fucking impossible to build the Great Wall of China in a fucking day. That's impossible. You know, this big grand gesture that I think is going to be less work, it's actually way more crazy than just the consistent, small influence of each moment, and how that is more effortless the less I think about it. And so it's a lot easier than I ever thought.
Yeah. I'm gonna pass it to Marie. Hey.
Oh yes, I'm already unmuted. Okay, great. Yeah, I got sidetracked there for a second because I asked Jazz about their vape, and I was like, what you got there? And just showing it, I was like, don't know what that means, but I like the way but I absolutely love the idea of just this whole conversation, because it really is about the application. It's been really fun to enter situations that would have in the past stressed me out or send me, hiding away in my corner, instead of just fucking facing it and going, oh yeah, this is all part of it too, because it all is. And so here I am presented with this experience, and I'm going to continue to trust that I'm here, and I'm going to put my best foot forward always, because that's all I can ever do, regardless of what the experience presents. Maybe it's something I would love, maybe it's something I would don't necessarily love or I'm not delighted by, or whatever Amanda said earlier that I enjoyed. And it doesn't matter, because it's been helpful to continue to have these conversations, because it reminds you of that trust, and it reminds you that you're going to be okay regardless, because you've always been. And it's been funny how often I'm also having conversations. I know we talked about this too, but it just happens more and more. Like anyone I'm interacting with in some way, I feel like this type of conversation is coming up, or like just having deeper conversations with people. And for a while I had this like, if nobody wants to have deep conversations, or nobody, because every time I would try to have conversations with people, they would be like, nah. But the more I've let that shit go of even the need to necessarily have those conversations, I guess those conversations have showed up. Like the fact that I'm even here with you all, like, what the hell? Like you're creating this concept, and it just all resonates so hard. And it's a silly little thing we're experiencing. And it's so funny to make light of it all. So like this morning, it's so funny that you guys are talking about stretching, because even last night and waking up this morning, like my lower back was like in so much pain that I'm like, it almost reminded me of like when I would get like a flu or be sick, and I would have body aches, and I'm like, oh gosh, am I sick? I'm like, but I don't feel sick. Like I usually have the other components with it. And so I've been trying just to pay attention to what it's telling me, and I constantly come back to, giving my body, or any situation that's presenting itself, the attention that it deserves, because that's all like just giving my body the attention it needs right now. And responding on that versus what I think it needs, or making all these assumptions instead of just like really listening, really sitting with it, and moving forward from there, instead of, also I feel like I've been in a spiral of knowing that I need to stretch but then like not doing it, and then judging myself for not doing it, and I feel like it's just like all connected. And whenever I find myself doing the thing that I've built up in my head that I'm like, I don't want to do it or blah blah blah, and then I end up doing it, and it's like, I think Amanda said it too, it's like it's totally fine, like it's a lot easier than I made it out to be. And just because I, like anything else, I'm just gonna show up and do the thing without um judging or putting myself down in any way, because what is that gonna do other than prevent me from continuing on and doing what
Right.
I could be doing.
Right, yeah. It's like, oh, it doesn't help to keep maintaining this bar and expectation. Wait, it's not beneficial for me to show up to something, expect myself to do it well. That doesn't help me do it better or well. That actually makes it way worse and keeps you from wanting to even try new things, if you're used to maintaining that bar all the time. It's like, no, there's no fucking good use in trying, but it's a sense of control, I guess. Just like, well, at least if I do poorly, I can know that I'm doing poorly. It's like you still don't know that. It's like that bar is just your own fucking bar as you go too. It's like there's nothing about it that exists in reality.
No, it's the funniest thing too, because I mean, what's the bar? It's like, this is, if I was here,
What should be happening?
I'd be happy,
Mhm.
I'd be fulfilled, and somehow judging myself is going to get me there. Like, it's just like, hold on, because the place that you're talking about doesn't have any of that shit. So you're kind of getting farther away. Like the place that you're talking about is where you're not judging yourself. Judging yourself's not going to get you there. But we actually think that, like, no, if I'm just a little harder on myself, I'll get to a place where I'm not hard on myself. Makes total fucking sense.
Oh, yeah. What we
Mhm.
do, spinning ourselves up, thinking that, yeah, whipping ourselves is gonna get us to move better. Like that direction.
Absolutely. And enjoy my life, because nothing says, enjoyment like whipping myself.
Yeah, but not even whipping ourselves. It's literally thinking about whipping yourself. It's like whipping yourself would do something. You'd stop. That shit would hurt. You'd bleed.
Mhm.
You'd like
Right.
shit would actually happen if you were
At least
actually
that's
whipping
happening in
yourself.
reality, right?
We are just straight up thinking about the whipping ourselves. And
Thinking we should be whipping ourselves.
Ex-
It's like,
maybe I finally learn. Maybe I'll learn my lesson.
Oh, goodness.
I don't want to actually do it, but I'll think about it
Oh,
real hard.
Uh-huh.
Right. It's like thinking is it doing?
Yeah.
Like do it, do anything. Do fucking anything. Walk around the fucking block. Like I have like just splashed myself with cold water. You ever heard the expression like getting hit with like a bucket of cold water?
Yep.
Like I have splashed myself in the face with cold water just to kind of get myself out of my head. Like, oh, that's cold, it's freezing. And then I'm like, I'm not thinking about my problems anymore. And that was, I developed an appreciation for physical pain in like when it happens randomly, right? I'm not paying attention. I'm rushing through my apartment. I stub my toe on the coffee table. I knock over a cup. I break the cup, and my toe hurts because I slammed into it without a shoe on. So it was toe on the wood, and I'm like, fuck. And we've got a broken cup, and my toe is in throbbing pain. But what I appreciate about those moments of pain is that in that moment, I'm not thinking about any of my problems.
Mhm.
So like I am in the moment, I am feeling it, I am living this moment, and I'm like, damn it, I hate that I just struck my toe, but I love that it just brought me right here. It just like anchored me in the center of this moment right now.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about my attention. The minute that I realize I've been so caught up, I'm like, that shit anchors me. And I'm like, oh shit. We were just in a thought loop. Okay. All right. shit, what's happening? You know, that's like immediately one of my thoughts
Like
goes,
getting dropped.
because I
right
wasn't
here.
paying attention. I was just in the thought loop. So I was like, it's almost like it's like crash landing on a foreign planet and I'm an alien. And that's what it feels like when I'm anchored back in the moment of just realizing I was in a thought loop. And I'm like, okay, we're on foreign land. Are there combative species on this planet? Like, what's happening? Am I in my room? Am I home? Am I out and about? Am I in my car? Am I in a meeting, not paying attention? Am I chatting with a friend, totally not paying attention to them? Like, what's actually happened? And then in that, I'm like, okay, pick a direction, let's go.
Mhm.
And then I can be honest and I can be like, you know what? I'm so sorry, man. I was just in my own head. Or shit, I'm at a red light. Somebody honked the horn at me. Beep, beep. Like, oh shit, my bad. I'm good. I'm going. You know, it's like eating as much as I want to beat myself up, like that's just thinking about what I should be doing. That's thinking about the bar.
Mhm.
That's not actually doing anything. And if I really care about what I just judged, then why not actually do it?
Mhm.
Exactly.
So I'm judging a hypothetical. Fuck. I got better shit to do in my
Yeah,
time.
seriously.
It's my time, it's my life, you know. And so that being anchored again, it feels like that's like crash landing onto your own planet of your mind, of the landscape of your mind, and just being able to say like, okay, I have no idea what's happening, but I can tap in, I can pay attention. The opportunity to pay attention is always right here, so it doesn't matter how long it's been. You
Yeah.
can just,
It's always here.
Absolutely.
you're always back here.
We are coming down to the last like 7 minutes of our episode here. Before I pass it over to Andrew, I just wanted to remind our listener, we have a Colorado mini retreat coming up on May 30th to June 3rd. This is going to be a fun event. We have a ticket or two left. If you'd like to check out the website, dualisticunity.com, definitely do so because we would love to see you there. And this is our last event until November. And that'll be on Vancouver Island. That's a 9-day retreat. So if you're looking for an affordable event where you get to hang out with us in a very, tight, small setting, because this retreat's only, I think, 7 people, 7 guests, I think is the max that we're having at this, possibly 8. It's a small event. If you want to hang with Andrew and myself and Amanda, this is the time. So we would love to see you there if you can make it. That was all I had to say. We're going to continue on Patreon after this call. So if you'd like to join us there, we will see you at 8 p.m. Eastern time. That said, Andrew, take it away, sir.
Man, that sounds freaking awesome. I'm gonna have to maybe sign up for that now that I don't have a job or anything. That sounds like a good investment for me, honestly. But just what you guys were saying, like, I feel like this is the first time in my life I've actually had to like feel out my own shit on my own. Like when I went through my breakup, I found whenever I got super low, I was always reaching out to people to try and get them to like bring me up. And that was putting so much stress on my friends. And they kind of just disconnected because they're like, I have my own issues. Like I can't be around that. And I dialed it back and my friends still aren't really there. So I've been left alone to really process it all. And it's just been insanely informative, not going towards drinking or smoking or like a distraction. You know what I mean? Like actually just sitting through the shit and being like, there's no one I can call right now that's going to have an answer for me that I don't already know. Like there's literally no one. It's scary as fuck when you relied your whole life on other people to be there for you, and then you just have yourself. And just going through that process, and like same with what you said about stretching and stuff. I used to do at my old job. I used to exercise with 80, 90-year-old seniors, and I have to round them all up. We do stretches, and I do back to back. And they would feel so good after it, and I would feel so good, but it would be hard to get them there to do it. But it's like when you're that age, and even at my age of 28, it's like the shit helps. Like I feel so much better after doing it, and it's just all of that is like it's just on you to do that for yourself, right? It's not for anyone else, not because the other seniors are going to see me working out, like I'm going to look better. It's like, no, this is going to make you feel better. And the same thing with like me not just like pushing my emotions onto someone else to make me feel better. It's like, oh yeah, just keep going. It's like, why can't I just say that for myself? Be my own hero and be my own biggest fucking pep talk person or whatever.
Friends.
So
be your own friend. And I love that you talked about like encouraging the seniors to stretch physically, and how the analogy that came to mind right now, we are we are exhibiting and practicing a mental flexibility
Yes,
right
we are.
now.
Mhm.
Every time that you are noticing when you're caught in a thought loop, every time that you are choosing a new direction, every time that you're giving yourself grace to quote unquote make the mistakes of the unfolding learning process that is not linear, that doesn't go in a clear path, that is super jagged and unexplainable and it looks like it makes no sense. But we are in the application of mental flexibility. And it's just as difficult to get us to think about mentally stretching in the same way that it's difficult to get somebody that's 80 to physically stretch. But afterwards, you always feel better. We're doing the same thing. And it does influence the way that the body feels, and the body influences the way that the mind feels. It's like there are so many influences, but I just wanted to make a note that I think that we are mentally flexing, and I think we're developing a sensitivity to even have more mental flexibility, and that's just as important.
Absolutely. It really does go hand in hand too. I mean, you feeling trying to be super certain of something or figure something out, or
Rigid.
yeah, there's full body clench,
Ugh.
feel it everywhere.
Mental clench.
Versus, yeah, like being willing to be less certain. It's like there's at least the relaxation there. It can feel alarming in certain ways, but it's like you look at your experience, look at what you're doing. And Andrew, I can't say how much I relate to the feeling of like for the first time in your life, kind of being in a spot where it's like on your own, like looking at yourself. And I found an appreciation for just like realizing, you know, dropping the bar and realizing this is kind of the start of like figuring that out. Whether it's a thing like working out, for example, was a thing I went to feel better, or calling a certain person that like I don't call anymore, and just like not doing those things as much is uncomfortable as shit. Like it's fucking uncomfortable
Right.
to like be so habitually do certain things, not even realize, oh, there was something under the surface of like why I did that, something
Right.
under the surface of why I did that. And it's like you stop doing them, you're still left with the shit that's under the surface
Mhm.
without so much of a sense of, you know, the thing you use to mitigate
But that
that.
sounds like mental stretching to
But
me.
exactly,
You're
that's
stretching
where
there.
that's where the work is finally done. That's when it's like rolling your sleeves up, when it's
Mhm.
not, you know, the immediate response that just kind of like patches everything up correctly.
And flexibility is
maintains it.
cumulative, both physically and mentally,
Mhm.
right? You're building more flexibility, the more practice, the more, and just like with physical stretching, you pay attention, you want to be super in tune with like how, like with your sensitivity to it, because it's so easy to have a stretching injury physically when you're not paying attention, when you're trying to rush it, when you think you should be going faster, in the same way that you can judge yourself with the mental flexibility.
Mhm.
But it's take it slow, pay attention to what's happening, and just know that you're going to get better the more you do it. So just, you know, try not to judge your progress, whether it's physical or mental flexibility that you're talking about.
And if you can, I'm going to wrap the episode up on this. Try to remember that what you think of what you're going through now isn't what you're always going to think about what you're going through. I really want you to keep that in mind, because, well, it's being communicated here that being in that situation where you're like, oh my God, it's on me. My whole life is on me. And that's kind of frightening. That's all because it's going through the lens of who you think you are. And so while you might feel afraid, I'm fucking excited for you, because while you're thinking, I don't know if I can handle this, I know you're about to discover how much you can handle. I know you're about to discover exactly how much potential you have, and there's no other way to do it. And so while you might be afraid, I'm inspired. I'm excited, because I know from being on that same fucking path that how you feel about it now is going to change, because what you're going through is going to mean something different later on. So I'm stoked, because the fear that you're encountering is really just excitement in disguise, hiding behind that idea of you. Keep jumping in. And on that note, we are going to wrap up today's episode. We're going to continue on in 15 minutes. So we have one person here who would like to, I think, wrap us up. Jazz, you got a thought you want to close the episode on?
Yes, one more thing that I wanted to announce was that I have a poll on the Discord for when we can have our next games night. I have a poll for some options for this weekend. And so if you can make it this weekend, then feel free to go to the online events channel on the Discord server and vote in the poll.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. I look forward to that.
Yeah.
So everyone, if you haven't checked out our community Discord, what the fuck? Definitely check out our community Discord. Go to dualisticunity.com and click on community. It'll take you right to it. The Discord is totally free. And as you can tell, Jazz organizes awesome shit on there. Thanks, Jazz. Appreciate you throwing that in. We're going to wrap this up, everyone. We'll see you on Patreon in 15 minutes. Thank you, Kelly, Marie, Jazz, Andrew, for being here for this roundtable. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been super inspiring and exciting for me.
It's been a great one. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Love you. Bye.